Sarika, let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you think you are at lying?
At lying, 0.
0, you can't lie at all.
I can't lie.
Okay, well,
And if I'm forced to, you can tell.
Really? This is part of why I like hanging out with you, because I feel like I'm a super gullible person. I believe anything anybody tells me, and I wanted to know if there's a way that I can get better at telling when people are lying. I want to play kind of a game with you, where we're going to tell each other a bunch of stories. Some of them are going to be true, some of them are going to be lies. And we're going to see if we can figure it out, and then we're going to bring in an expert, a scientist who studies lying, to see if they can provide us with some of those tips.
Okay.
Game?
I guess so.
That's a lie? Is that a lie? So, Sarika, this is the scientist I was telling you about. This is Dr. Amy Leach. She is an expert in the science of lying. So, Amy, help us out. Help me spot a liar.
So first, we're going to play a little game. Each of you were asked in advance to prepare some lies and prepare some truths. So some things that had happened to you in your lives and some things that had never happened to you in your lives. So in this first round, we're just going to ask you to use your gut. Okay, so this is called implicit lie detection. So one of you, we're going to start with Anthony. You're going to tell a story about something that either did or did not happen to you in your past. And Sarika, you're going to have to detect his lie.
You look
So he's
nervous.
the one who's going to be lying or telling the truth. Why am I the one who's so nervous?
I feel so confident.
You're not going to give me any
I'm gonna
tips?
fool you.
Not yet, not for this round.
Okay.
We'll just see how you naturally do.
All right, first question. I once nearly blew myself up with butane gas.
True.
Okay, you don't want any questions about that? You don't want to?
100% true.
Okay, you're confident?
Confident.
Okay, Anthony, was that true or false?
That story was false.
False?
Yeah. No, well, first of all, it wasn't butane gas. It was diethyl ether.
Wait, what do you mean it wasn't? So this has happened?
Well, something like this
You have
happened.
almost blown yourself up.
This is not exactly true. No, I nearly lit my legs on fire, is what happened. I didn't almost blow up.
That's tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known you now for a few years. I feel like that was a very probable situation.
That's fair.
Okay.
Different.
So, I mean, that was a pretty good guess. Would you say? I mean, maybe I should have asked some more questions, though.
You should have asked some more questions, most definitely.
Okay.
But what he did was told an embedded lie. And so he only changed one small part of the story to make it false, but everything else around it was true.
But is that allowed?
Yes.
An embedded? I've never even
That
heard
is the best
term.
thing that lie tellers can do.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to do very well in this game, but
I'm feeling very confident.
Sarika, now it's your turn.
okay. My dad used to get us to pick up roadkill when I was a kid so he could do a dissection and give us a biology lesson. True or false?
Well, this sounds plausible to me. Obviously, your dad, I think most people know who your dad is, David Suzuki. He is a famous lover of nature. But dissecting animals feels like a pretty gruesome thing to do. I don't know if he would shy away from it. How old were you when you were doing it?
It was my whole childhood.
The entirety of your childhood, okay. What's the biggest animal you ever dissected?
A falcon.
What is the smell of a dissected falcon like?
Blood.
Interesting.
I'm feeling really judged right now. I'm like trying to keep it together.
I feel pretty confident in my response at this point. I'm not 100% sure, but I would say like I'm 80%, 90% confident. Yeah, I think I know what the answer is.
Okay, what do you think it is?
I think that you are telling the truth because I've met your dad and he does do that kind of thing. He is fascinated with the world around him and he's good at helping others step into that. So I think that it's true.
Sarika, is it true or false?
It's true.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, knew it. Yeah, booyah.
When I was a kid, we would just be driving on our way somewhere and he'd be like, turn the car around. Then be like, Sarika, get out, now grab that squirrel. and throw it in the trunk. And then,
What?
yeah, and then I thought this was kind of normal because it happened all the time.
No,
Sometimes
this
we would
happens
have-
because your dad is David Suzuki. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just how it was. You can tell he is in psychology.
Yeah.
I am not. So you have so many more stuff
Yeah.
up your sleeve to be able to draw from. No, you're shaking your head.
No, not at all. So research shows that people are only about 54% accurate at detecting lies, which we kind of saw today. So one of you got it right and one of you got it wrong.
Now, when you say people, though, regular, random people off the street or people like yourselves who are trained in
Yeah,
psychology.
I'd be really curious if you could guess better than your average person.
I doubt it. So there actually have been studies looking at whether experts, and experts are broadly defined, so people who are judges, lawyers, psychologists are better able to detect deception, and it turns out on average they're not.
Okay, so we are talking lie detection here. I know what everybody is thinking. You're gonna hook us up to a polygraph next, right?
No, sorry. The polygraph is not really a lie detector. All it's doing is detecting physiological arousal. And
Right.
so there are numerous problems with the polygraph. First of all, it requires subjective scoring on behalf of the examiner. Second of all, it's really susceptible to countermeasures, so people can beat the polygraph. And third, it has a high false positive rate for truth tellers, meaning that oftentimes truth tellers will look as though they're lying.
Right.
Yes.
You used a word there that I think a lot of people have heard before, but never in this context. You said arousal, and I think people have one idea in their head for what that means. But what does arousal mean when you're looking at polygraph?
And so what we're looking at is things like heart rate, galvanic skin conductance, which is sweat on
Right.
your fingertips, breathing rate. And so we see that those tend to increase when people are experiencing some kind of emotion or some kind of arousal.
Right.
And so that's what the polygraph is actually detecting, that increase. But obviously, if I'm asking you if you murdered somebody, you might naturally be more amped up. You might naturally show that increase in physiological arousal,
Right.
even if you weren't involved at all.
So I have heard that one of the best ways to beat a polygraph, I don't know if this is true, you clench your butthole, your anus, your anal sphincter. Is that real?
Yep, that's absolutely true. So if you selectively clench your sphincter muscle at the opportune time, so in response to certain questions, you can actually produce patterns of physiological arousal that will be difficult for people to interpret.
That is a hot tip.
Don't call it
Because
that.
the reason is you can't tell that I'm doing it.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's great.
So it's invisible. How effective is that method?
It's pretty effective. And so it absolutely can be difficult to not just detect on behalf of the examiner, but it yields patterns that suggest that the person might be telling the truth. For the next round, Anthony, you're going to be up first, so I'm going to kick you out because I need to give Sarika some tips
Yes.
about
Yes,
what
she does.
she can
Okay.
do.
Good
Bye-bye.
luck. Yeah, good luck.
So for this next round, I'm going to get you to ask unanticipated questions. Turns out lie tellers often plan out what they're going to say and what questions they might expect to get. And so as a result, what we should be doing is asking unanticipated questions. So things like how they planned an event. That will be problematic for lie tellers because now they have to fabricate the information on the fly.
Right, okay. So if somebody's created a lie, they've anticipated a bunch of answers, and then if I ask them a question that they hadn't prepped for, it's going to be really hard for them to fake an answer right on the spot.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do
Okay.
this.
Anthony, you can pick up your card.
Okay. I once went tornado chasing.
Who organized that trip?
That would have been for work. That would have been for the Ontario Science Centre. So I don't know the specific coordinator whose responsibility it was, but it would have been one of my bosses.
How did you get to the tornado?
We went with a friend of mine who actually specializes in doing that kind of thing. So we were all in like just one of the big crew vans.
How long did it take for you to get to the tornado?
Well, we didn't actually get to a tornado. That would have been like, there's no way work would have let me do that. But we were in the area you would have found that kind of thing. So we didn't actually get to a tornado.
So, Sarika, those were your 3 questions. Do you think that he was telling the truth or a lie?
I think he was telling a lie.
Okay, Anthony, was that the truth or a lie?
That story was a lie. I don't know what you taught her,
Oh
but
my-
she got it. Yeah, that did not happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why, as soon as he started speaking, all of your notes went out the window, and I was just going off a gut. Now, you were very prepared. You had answers to
Yeah.
everything. I mean,
Yeah.
he never moved
Well-
his eyes away. He locked eyes. He had he had a smile on his face. He didn't seem
Yeah.
rattled. And yet,
That's the thing. I mean, you say I didn't seem rattled, but I did feel rattled when you asked me specifically, how did I get there? Because I had to invent a story very quickly. And I was afraid that what you saw was like a micro emotion of like
flash
moment
of fear.
A flash of fear where like, oh God,
maybe
she's
that's
gonna
what I
find
picked
it.
up on.
Yeah.
When it comes to anticipated or unanticipated questions, it's going to be pretty difficult for a lie teller to anticipate every single question
Right.
that could possibly be asked by somebody.
Right.
So there is still probably going to be something that you could pose that would stump them or would lead them to have difficulties. Okay, now Sarika, you're going to be on the spot.
Oh, great.
You need to leave, and I'm going to give Anthony some tips.
Hit the road, buddy.
Hey, all right, I'm out of here.
And so in this round, we're going to ask a different type of unanticipated question.
Okay.
And so rather than focusing on process or on planning, what I'm going to ask you to do is have her draw the event. And
That's
so,
interesting.
first of all, most often lie tellers are not anticipating that they're going to
Yeah.
be asked spatial questions and demonstrate where things are located on paper. But also, their memories tend to be weaker for information. And so we like to look at 2 things. One is the difference between the account as they say it and then as they draw it.
Wow.
And then 2 is how detailed the drawings are.
Right. Okay. I'm very excited about this.
Okay, you look prepared.
He is. So you can pick up your card and tell your story.
When I was a kid in Vancouver, I had a museum full of random things I'd found and collected. Cool seashells, rocks, bones, etc. I would charge people 25 cents to look at them.
A museum, you called it. Where was it in the house?
It was outside.
It was outside. Okay. I'd like a little bit more detail. Can you describe kind of what the setup looked like and the space around you with as much detail as you can?
So you walk down and it's the cement path, and then there's the gate in front, and then on either side there's like a garden. So it had some flowers and bushes. And then I would set up on the path in between those 2 areas.
Okay. I don't know, maybe I can can I do like a phone a friend, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and I ask for a helpful question?
Sure. So describe exactly how each piece was laid out.
Well, they were all pretty small, so I would just literally like put them down in a row.
There's one more thing I'd like you to do. We've got a pad and marker here. I would like you to draw the scene you just described for me as accurately as you can. Draw the garden, the pathway, the shells, as much as you can.
I really feel like I'm under investigation here. Okay, Don't judge my art. So, if the house was here, and then there's kind of like a sort of like deck thing, stairs, and then a path like this, which is cement, and then you have like, I don't know, a bush, and then I guess I would be somewhere around here on the path, and then I would have my treasures in a row.
Okay.
This is what I got.
Okay. You know, I think I'm ready to make my decision.
Okay, Anthony, do you think that it is a lie or the truth?
Well, I think that Sarika is telling the truth here, mostly because this is the most Sarika thing I've ever heard of.
Sarika, was it a lie or the truth?
You know what? You know me very well, but this was a lie.
Are you kidding me? Are you serious? You know where where I went wrong is she could not describe the items in front of her with any specificity.
In a way, like this part
Was
is
true.
a true
It
thing
is.
because in my head I was like, where could I do this? Oh, a thing that I remember is my house when I was
Yeah.
growing up.
I will say that this is another embedded lie where focusing on the external events was problematic because you knew that they were truthful and you could draw where the house was, the bushes,
Yeah.
etc. What we needed to focus on was the central part, which was the actual drawing of the seashells,
Yeah,
or the
which are
different
literally
shells,
just
the
dots.
items were just dots.
They're
And
just
every
dots.
time it was described, it was always 5 in a row, just 5 in a row. And there was never any
Extra
elaboration.
details?
Lie tellers still have difficulty providing those types of details.
Wow.
As you can see, even with these techniques, it can still be pretty challenging to detect deception. I will say that we do improve people's accuracy quite a bit with each of them. So with the technique that you were using, Sarika, this unanticipated question technique focusing on planning or processing, we find that people's accuracy goes up to about 72%. And remember, we're starting at
Wow.
54 to begin with.
That
Percent?
is significant.
Yeah, so it's never going to be 100%, and 72 is still something to work on, but it's a significant
It's incredible.
increase.
Yeah, it's way above chance. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the spatial awareness?
So that tends to increase to about 80% when we focus on spatial questions.
Not in
So
my
you're
case.
one of the 20%.
Yeah.
Well, and these aren't infallible. That's the thing. None of these techniques are 100%
Right.
foolproof. They're not going to work
Right.
every single time. One of the problems is that even though I said to focus on process,
Yeah.
or I said focus on spatial questions, you were still trying to focus on demeanor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
What
just
the person
default.
looked like.
There is
Yeah.
just something about it that we default to.
Yeah.
How does he look? What is my gut
Yeah.
saying? That seems to override even the science and the tips that you told us.
I think that it's because it's pervasive in society, that we tend to see it in movies, we tend to hear about it from our parents. If you look away, then you must be lying to me.
Now, most of us in our everyday, we're not dealing with hardened criminals. We're not questioning people like that. Is there like a number one tip you could give the general population when trying to determine if another regular person is lying?
I would say that many of the tips that we've talked about would probably be pretty effective. So asking unexpected questions, but it always comes down to what the person is saying. Does it seem plausible? Do they seem to be contradicting themselves? Are they providing complications? So talking about things that occurred along the way that made the situation more difficult. So focus on those types of things, verbal information, rather than demeanor, because nonverbal behavior is much too easy to control.
So I guess what we really can say is that without evidence, the truth is, you never know.
That's right.
Oh, man. Well, Amy, this has been so informative. I
Yeah.
can't think, and that is not a lie. So thank you so much for coming here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching.
You've definitely almost blown yourself up with other materials, am I right?
It was diethyl ether. I was using it as part of an experiment I was playing around with, and I was doing it in a somewhat unsafe way, like basically on my bed, in my boxers. I probably should.
You're giving us,
cut all
I'm
this
not
out.
asking you any questions. You're just delivering this on your own, right?